Hello and welcome. This course is meant to introduce universal design for learning and help practitioners start to think about applying it to practice in order to provide the best options for our learners. It also discusses ways that UDL can be used to infuse equity into our practice. We hear a lot about the importance of DEI work, and both UDL and this course will help you think about putting this work into place. Please view these slides at the speed, pace, and intervals that work best for you. Note that the slides and a transcript for this presentation are available in this course on iLEARN. We hope you catch UDL fever too. Let's directly define UDL right from the start here. On your screen is the legal definition of UDL, and it might be interesting for our adult education practitioners to know that this same definition is used under Perkins legislation for our CTE partners. Notice the bolding that brings out important parts of the definition. This is universal design for learning in itself, using bold and/or colors to help elevate key points of text and visuals. Let's read the definition together. UDL is a scientifically valid framework for guiding educational practice that provides flexibility in the ways information is presented, in the way students respond or demonstrate knowledge and skills, and in the way students are engaged, and reduces barriers in instruction, provides appropriate accommodations, supports, and challenges, and maintains high achievement expectations for all students, including students with disabilities and students who are limited English proficient. The UDL guidelines are a living, dynamic tool that is based in research and continually developed, and these guidelines are for use in implementing universal design for learning. Let's take a look.
Here are the UDL guidelines. They are on the CAST website, and there's a link to them in the course on iLEARN. The guidelines on CAST website is interactive, so you can click through and explore each area and read examples. So now we are going to focus on why the UDL guidelines even exist.
An underlying principle of UDL is variability. And before we move on, to point out part of the visual on the screen, you may see that some of these slides come from CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technologies, who publishes the UDL guidelines. Your SIPDC team are certified CAST UDL trainers and have collaborated with CAST on UDL presentations, meetings, and more. Learner variability is predictable in that variability is, in fact, the norm, and it is contextual as well. We prefer different ways of learning in different contexts, on different days, and in different mindsets. We will discuss what to do for variability as we move forward. Adult learners, those who never earned a high school diploma, experience learning disabilities, can't read, are struggling to learn a new language and culture, or are working to achieve their learning goals, often struggle with feelings of shame or helplessness. Educators may feel ill-equipped to address these beliefs, but research indicates helping adult learners engage with their conscious or unconscious feelings increases their ability to learn. It is also important that as the educator, you carefully examine your own preconceived beliefs about what intelligence and ability look like, sound like, and feel like. One of the best ways to help learners address these feelings is to ask. Think about ways you can best ask your learners what they need using activities, technology, and different forms of communication. We want to help students recognize and overcome barriers in order to optimize learning experiences.
We are now going to focus on the barriers. The most important aspect here is that the barrier is in the design and not the learner. Let's take a closer look at what that means. So I am an amateur gardener. I have peppers and tomatoes in my garden, and so I would go out with my hose and spray them down the exact same amount of water, the exact same number of times each week. And as an amateur gardener, I got a little confused. Why were my pepper plants thriving and my tomatoes were rotting? The slide says here, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. This idea is from Alexander de Hare, and it's simple but powerful. And so if we look at the environment, the pepper plants need more water, and the tomato plants did not, but I was providing them with the exact same thing. In order to design for all learners, we need to understand that just like flowers need different soil nutrients, amounts of water, human beings are variable in their learning needs. Therefore, the problem is not the learner, but the environment in which the learner operates. Variability is not just an important consideration for thinking about differences between students or learners, but also within each learner in different contexts. So barriers are places where learners get stuck or frustrated in the learning experience, and they're components of the instructional design that could prevent learners from making progress toward a goal. Everyone has barriers, but barriers in the learning design are within our control to change. So let's look at some areas to consider when anticipating barriers. So how do we make a change and reduce barriers? And we can look at it from 4 different angles. And the first angle are the materials. So how is the content being represented? We can look at the methods. How is the content being delivered? The assessment, to judge how is the learning being demonstrated. And then lastly, the environment. How is the climate or culture supportive of the learning? Here are some possible ways of answering these questions. So when we look at the materials, we can see what different types of materials there are. So how is it being represented? Perhaps through reading or texts, videos, audio, manipulatives, digital tools, and online platforms. Are different methods of how the content is being delivered. Could be things like lecture, discussion, reading, investigations, inquiry, and online platforms. As we continue to look at assessment, how is learning being demonstrated? Well, it could be written, oral, reading, visual, or online and digital. Lastly, but also very importantly, how is the culture supportive of learning? For that, we need to look at our protocols, routines, expectations, and the physical space. This is not an exhaustive list, just a start to help define what each of these categories are. And things don't always fit into just one category. So for example, a method could easily cross over into a material. And it's not meant to be a rigid definition to follow, and it's certainly not just a checklist or boxes for us to check. It's meant to highlight this concept with a few examples and to show the diversity of options. So who exactly experiences barriers? So average is a myth, and Microsoft illustrates this concept using 3 persons to describe different types of disabilities and difficulties experienced by everyone. So if we look at this visual, we're going to look first at the first column, which reads permanent. This is someone with an ability limiting condition that is lasting and is unlikely to change. For example, an amputee or someone who is blind or deaf. Our second column is temporary, someone with an ability limiting condition that will resolve with time. For example, a broken arm, tonsillitis, or even a severe sunburn. And the third column is situational, someone with an ability limiting condition that is dependent on a specific situation. For example, at a music concert where it's really loud and hard to hear anything, or a new parent with an infant. For us to comprehensively understand our diversity, we need to uncover what is happening with all learners, which can often be hidden from the majority. For example, Captioning in media was originally designed for deaf and hard of hearing viewers decades ago. Today, captioning is readily available in many forms of visual media, like on TV, online streaming services, and more. And it's used by many people, including those in noisy places, those watching international media in a language they don't speak, for those who need to maintain concentration, and far beyond those who are deaf and hard of hearing. In fact, a study by the Office of Communications in the UK found that the majority, 80%, of viewers using subtitles were not deaf or hard of hearing. Again, you need to ask people.
This leads naturally into predictability. Variability is predictable in the sense that all learners will learn differently, again, also in different contexts. We can provide as many options as possible to design for this variability in our own classrooms and settings as much as possible. This is not variety in the sense of adding a visual Monday, having learners record their answers on Tuesday, but rather designing for options as much as possible each time. How do we do this? We do this by infusing UDL. First, please don't feel overwhelmed. Start with one lesson and look to start to add options. You can also view lessons with Universal Design for Learning already infused. There are resources that accompany this course that can help you to do so. So take a look in iLEARN for those. But let's look at the UDL guidelines again and discuss a couple of examples of how to do this. First, let's level set. The green column represents engagement. It shows ways to engage students, to engage learners. The purple column shows representation. It's all about providing options in how you present material to learners. The third column, the blue column, is providing multiple means of action and expression. So providing more options for the ways that learners show what they know. Also important to note are the horizontal rows. First is access, accessing these options, accessing the material. Then as we move down, we're building on that knowledge, on those skills, on those options when we decide what works best for us in certain contexts. Then internalizing as we move down, becoming self-regulatory, really working on those executive functioning skills, for example. And all of these lead to the bottom row, which are our ultimate goals in UDL for our learners. Expert learners who are purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, and strategic and goal-directed. Now we're back to the full guidelines again that have ideas for infusing universal design for learning and for providing options for our learners. So let's focus on the purple for an example. When you are presenting content to learners, so that's what representation is, providing multiple means of representation, representing the material or presenting the content. That's what we're talking about here. Are we thinking about ways to customize the display of information? Are we providing options for that? Not one time, but rather as much as we can. So these are ideas like looking at the size of the text, images, graphs, tables, or other visual content. Are we offering options for the volume or rate of speech? So do the learners know how to manipulate the volume or the rate of speech? We use videos for the classroom, for training, for orientation, etc. All these things can be affected by these options. The layout of visuals or other elements, and the font used for print materials. There are many options here for learners to show what they know in the blue as well, using multimedia tools for communication, maybe recording instead of writing or drawing. There are many options available here in action and expression. so that students can show what they know in ways students or learners can show what they know in the ways that work best for them. You see here the colors come together for an improved overall experience. The columns that we talked about do not exist in silos. So let's talk about a couple of quick examples here. In the area of action expression, just like we talked about in the last slide, if a group works together to put a presentation together and combines the ways in which they express what they know best, some may draw, some may talk, some may share their artwork on a poster. Where else could this fit? That also fits in the area of engagement, fostering collaboration and community, minimizing threats, etc. This is such exciting work that helps us to organize our current best practices and encourages us all to grow in other areas to best reach those we serve. This is so exciting.
Teach learners how to learn, not just what to learn, embodies the essence of Universal Design for Learning, UDL. By focusing on developing adaptable learning strategies and fostering a mindset of curiosity, UDL ensures that educational opportunities are accessible and beneficial to all learners. It's about equipping individuals with the tools to navigate diverse learning environments and challenges, promoting lifelong learning and success in an ever-evolving world.
If you are interested in learning more about Universal Design for Learning, there are opportunities to get involved in professional development and learning in Illinois adult education. Check out the Excellence in Adult Education website and watch the PDM Pulse for information on the Equity Pathways training and the Equity Virtual Learning Community. Also check out the course on iLEARN about DEI-AB. Thank you so much, and we hope you catch UDL fever too.